I'm Catharine Curran. I'm from the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, the Charlton College of Business. I'm a marketing faculty member, and I'm currently affiliated with the University College Dublin, Smurfit Graduate School of Business, and with the Rouen Business School in Normandy in France. I was a late-in-life academic, so I had a full career and then went and got my PhD later on. And when I was in my PhD program, I thought, oh, I'd love to go work and study in Europe for a while. And I was very aware of Fulbright, and so this is my sabbatical year. So a year and a half ago, I saw the Fulbright package and the Schuman program, because it centers on regulation, and my research area is the regulation of marketing and advertising to children. And I do a lot of comparative regs between the US and the EU in terms of how they view regulation of media, and especially children's media. So I was very curious to see there's a whole host of new regulations that just came out under a directive called AVMS, and a whole range of regulations around food marketing to kids in response to WHO's awareness of the obesity epidemic in both Europe and the US. So I saw the Schuman program as a way to do an inter-country comparison between how France was responding, how Ireland was responding, and then looking at the US. So it actually gave me an opportunity to work with the school I have an ongoing relationship with in France, to establish a new relationship with the school in Dublin, and continue some of the work I've been doing for years. Listen to the webinars. Listen to the podcasts that the CIES puts out. Carefully read what's in the grant. I was actually talking to the administrator of the grant here in Belgium, and she said often she gets applications and it's like, do they read this grant? And I always encourage people to just very detail, make sure your project fits. And for mine it was this kid glove fit, but you'll find something that fits you, and then really think about a project that benefits. They want 3 areas of benefit. It has to benefit you and your research, obviously, but that's not nearly as important as establishing the linkages with another school, really getting to know a culture and a people. And for the EU, the Schuman, really understanding the EU, its processes, its agencies, how it functions, how it works, and how that's related to US or transatlantic relationships. So the application process is a little daunting when you look at it because you need many things. In writing the statements is something that's going to take a little time, so you don't want to wait too late in the process. But if you put thought into it and you really do just let really congeal a project that makes sense and delivers on all the deliverables, not just, oh, I really want to do this fun research, you're going to be fine. And you just need the letters of recommendation are obviously very important. And so I think it's a daunting process on paper, not so bad once you start doing it. But it is competitive, so you have to be sure you have a fairly coherent, tight package. I come from a business school. We're not the primary grantees. Most of the Fulbrights tend to go to people from either arts and sciences or law, or lots of students. So business faculty doing Fulbrights is a little unusual. What I found, though, is there's a high level of interest in having business faculty doing Fulbrights. Matter of fact, I've been just asked to go to Portugal for a week to visit at a business school in Portugal because I saw my name on a list through the Fulbright Intercultural Exchange Program. So I think for business faculty, it's just sort of understanding that even if the book doesn't say business, you can do your project as long as you present why a business school faculty member is appropriate. I think they tend to think more of economists doing a lot of the things we do. For me, it's meant a lot. I'm the first Fulbright from my college, so it's been an interesting process. I've given 3 talks now on my campus about the Fulbright, how to get it, how to do it. There's actually 5 Fulbrighters from my university this year, which is pretty amazing. We're a very small school, but we're encouraged, as most American faculty are, to really go out and see the world. So I think it's done amazing things for me in terms of visibility, visibility on my own campus, but also visibility within my profession. People say, hey, you got a Fulbright, tell me all about that. And so at least in our little corner of the world, the business school, it's really sort of raising quite a bit of awareness about, you know, that this program is appropriate for us, that we do play a role in this, and that you can get these. I mean, I think most people look at it and go, oh no, oh, I'll never get that. I shouldn't even bother. And no, I'm living proof you can get that. You just have to do your homework and make a project that matters. I just arrived about 7 weeks ago, so I'm still relatively new. It's an interesting time to be in Europe as a business faculty member because obviously the economic crisis. It's also an interesting time because of, you know, some of what's going on in the US and US-EU relations. So it's been interesting. It's been interesting in Dublin because of the economic crisis and the way it's unfolded in Ireland, and they're in the middle of an election. They have a serious immigration problem. So I'm getting to sort of compare the issues. I mean, in the US we talk all about immigration and how to block immigration. In Ireland they're talking about emigration and how to discourage that. And so they have the exact opposite issue of the US. In France, it's interesting to see, because I think Americans have this perception of the French or the French, and they don't want to be anything but French. And I was telling one of my colleagues I was actually in France the day they changed the flags on the buses. And they used to fly the French flag on the front of the bus, and then they started flying the European flag on the front of the bus. And this little old woman was standing at the bus stop with me. The bus pulls up, she looks at the flag, she goes, I guess we're European, and gets on the bus. And I thought, there you go, they're done, you know. It's like, well, whatever. So it's interesting to see how this European identity is sort of playing into both cultures. The French seem to have taken it in the usual, oh well, tomorrow, next week, whatever. And the Irish seem to be sort of, yeah, well, I guess this is all right. And so it's interesting to see European identity forming and what ways it's forming, and to just look at what, you know, where the tensions are in that between the sovereign country and the European state. Of course, in business, the goal was always an economic union to encourage transactions across all of these countries and the US, and that's my area, is facilitating that in a reasonable manner that still protects consumers. And it's interesting to watch them navigate some of that water. So for me, it's been an amazing experience with, you know, one of the newer countries in Europe, because the Republic of Ireland, people forget just how new that really is. And of course France, which is one of the founding original, you know. So it's interesting to watch both go through the process. They're in very different places, and in some ways very similar, in some ways very different. So as a two-country case study, it's a really interesting comparison. I think Fulbright is such an amazing program, and there were a few things I didn't know before I came. You know, they tell you about this ambassadorial role, that you're an ambassador, and I sort of thought that was, you know, a nice line on a piece of paper, but what I've learned is that, no, that's a very serious part of this experience, is that, and maybe it's just because I'm unique, but I'm asked to do a lot of things like this, a lot of talking to other groups, a lot of presenting to groups, a lot of just discussing, you know, what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and how I got there, and so there is this sort of mutual understanding that's being built. And as I said, it was something that was a little surprising to me, because I thought, oh, they're going to just leave me alone in my office, and that's absolutely not what this has been like at all. So I think that might be a big surprise to some, you know, very hardcore US researchers who are used to shutting their door and not engaging. You eat a lot of lovely dinners, but you get to meet some truly amazing people, but they're very interested in what you're doing and how you're doing it. So The role as ambassador, as the Luxembourg ambassador, said, I consider you all part of the core. And he's very accurate, at least in my case, about that. It's been probably one of the best learning experiences I've ever had. It's really allowed me to see things in a different way and to really appreciate. You know, it's one thing to read about what's going on, you know, especially in something as multi-headed as the European Union. I mean, we tend to think of it as one thing. And what I said to someone before was, you know, what I've learned about the EU is that somehow it works. You know, you wouldn't think this thing would work, but it somehow works. And it's such a lesson to us. I mean, I have colleagues that are Republican and Democrat that can't have lunch together because they can't sit in the same room with each other. And yet, you know, they were talking about the NATO representatives of Turkey and Greece always sit next to each other in any meeting, you know, and the Turkish delegation had this big party and all the Greeks and their families came. And you know, just this understanding of how important it is not to let these dialogues disintegrate into name-calling and screaming. And that's been probably the strongest lesson I've taken. And as I said, I'm just learning so many things that I never expected to learn. So for me, that's probably the sum of my experience.